Hello, everyone who is logging in now. We're just going to give this about another minute or two to let people trickle in, and then we will get started. Right, I think that we can get started. We may have a few people trickle in the next couple of minutes, and that is perfectly fine. But welcome everyone to our virtual List College alumni panel. We are so excited for all of you who are joining us tonight, and also so grateful to our lovely panelists who are here on this call. I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves in just a moment, but I wanted to make a quick announcement for all of the registered prospective students who are here tonight and parents. Feel free to submit any questions that you have in the chat, and we will reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes for a live Q&A. We also do have a nice array of prepared questions that our panelists are going to be responding to tonight, so you can expect that as well. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Melissa Friedman. She will tell you what she does here at JTS and how she knows our alumni panelists so well. She is going to be our moderator for the evening, so take it away, Melissa.
Excellent. Thank you, Madison, and welcome to everybody who's here this evening, prospective students and your family members, as well as our esteemed List College alumni. My name is Melissa Friedman, and I am the Director of the Office of Alumni Affairs. I actually began working for JTS 18 years ago, just celebrated my highversary. I was hired to be the Director of Career Development for List College many years ago. And about 5.5 years later into that, I transitioned into this role working with alumni from all 5 schools, not just solely working with the List College alumni and current students. And I have to say, List College students are amazing. And I don't just say that because I used to be an advisor and I used to do career development work with List College alumni, but really because there's nothing that they can't do or try to accomplish on their own. There's only so many days in a week and so many hours in a day, and yet our List College students manage to study 2 degrees at 2 amazing institutions. They work, they socialize, they have internships. And I have to say that the List College alumni and our vast alumni network really is what makes the program even more special while the students are in school and afterwards. Every single day, I connect alumni to other alumni who are relocating or transitioning their careers or looking to network in other ways. And on a regular basis, I do connect students with our alumni. And beyond just List College, the entire JTS alumni network has really embraced the opportunity to help current students, whether it's, like I said, whether it's career or geography relocation. Our alumni network is vast, it's unique. And I think because of the amazing programs like List College offers our students, our alumni are interested and eager to meet others who share their similar unique college experience. So without further ado, I would love to take this opportunity to allow our alumni on the panel this evening to introduce themselves. And they're going to share with you their names, where they came from, where they're currently living, the program that they participated in, their graduation year, which I believe you could also see in their names, the majors that they had at both JTS and either Columbia or Barnard, what extracurriculars they were involved with, and their post-graduation career trajectory, as well as position and title. So once they each share that with you, then we're going to get into some of the nuanced questions that I think will really help give you a full picture of why List College is so unique and why our students and our alumni are as special as they are. So here we go. Danu, you like to please start?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Danu Roisman. I was actually born in Argentina. I grew up in Miami. I'm currently in Miami for the holidays, but I live in DC. At List College, I studied political science at Columbia and Bible at JTS. I was in the joint program, graduated in 2020. I was involved in a bunch of things, including at JTS. I was a resident advisor and I was on List College Student Council. I was in Greek life, a few other things that I'm happy to talk about more. Right after I graduated, COVID hit in March of 2020. I moved to Florida and I actually started working on the Biden campaign in South Florida, which I did through the election in November of 2020. And I started with the House Appropriations Committee in DC in January of 2021, where I've been since. In April of this year, I got promoted to be speechwriter and press secretary on our team. So I've been doing that ever since. I think I answered all the questions.
Excellent, thank you. And
yeah. And I want to say I'm so excited for everyone on this call. Prospective Student Weekend when I was in high school is the reason I ended up at this school. So I'm very excited for everyone.
Thank you, Danu. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's afternoon where I'm at. But Eric Shore, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. That's where I'm from. But I've bounced around since then. I'm currently living in Thousand Oaks, California. But that's by way of Tel Aviv. Right after List College, I graduated, by the way, in the joint program in 2012. So I think I'm the oldest alumni on the panel here, and I'm almost celebrating, I think, 10 years since graduating, which is pretty nuts. But by way of Tel Aviv, after I graduated the program, where I studied modern Jewish studies at JTS, and I did Middle Eastern, South Asian, African studies over at Columbia, and Arabic language in particular, I moved to Israel. I made Aliyah, and I got my master's degree in Israel at the IDC Herzliya, now called Reichman University. After that, I volunteered for service in the IDF, where I served for 5.5 years as an intelligence officer. I did intelligence analysis, and then I was an assigned intelligence officer to one of the IDF's major generals. So fascinating work, really incredible, opportunity that I got. And then a few years ago, pre-COVID, I met my wife and decided to take a break. Burnt out from the Army, moved to California, and I started working in intelligence in the private sector, specifically in the tech sector. I'm going to just double back a second and talk about my undergraduate extracurriculars. Just a note, the whole Israel factor, I think, is a little obvious. I was deeply involved in Israel advocacy at Columbia University while I was on campus. I was my senior year, the president of what was then called Lion Pack. I don't even know if the future iteration ARIA still exists now, but the pro-Israel advocacy was something I was very deeply involved with. Stand With Us, APAC, all those organizations, and I did that for 4 years while I was at Columbia. I was involved in Greek life as well, and I was involved with Hillel more generally. So a lot of wonderful stuff that sort of pushed me towards the trajectory I went on. I think I covered ground there, like Danu, I'm excited for you guys because Prospective Student Weekend, I remember all those years back, really solidified why I wanted to attend JTS Columbia. So I'm excited for you guys.
Thank you, Eric. Shira Harris, would you like to answer?
Hello, my name is Shira Harris. I graduated from Barnard and List in 2018. I am originally from Chicago, and then I came to List for college. I studied theater at Barnard with a focus in technical theater and stage management, and then I studied Jewish gender and women's studies at JTS. While I was on campus, I was involved in a lot of the theater that was going on. At Columbia, I worked specifically in the theater that's on Barnard's campus. I was involved in Hillel. I worked in JTS admissions for a year. And once I graduated, I was working at the Rabbinical Assembly, which is housed at JTS. I worked there for a year, and then I applied to Teachers College at Columbia. Also, while I was at Columbia, I was very involved in the sign language club, and I applied to Teachers College in deaf education. I got my master's in deaf education, and I'm a full-time teacher now at a deaf school in Queens. I teach theater, visual art, and film production, and it's pretty fun. My students are ages 3 to 21. And when I'm not at school, I also like work professionally in theater as a stage manager, lighting designer, and various other positions. I think that's it. And I still live in New York.
Excellent, thank you. And sidebar, this is what I do all day long. Shira, remind me to put you in touch with one of our List and Rabbinical School alumni who is now the Rosh Yeshiva of the Rabbinical School for the Deaf in Chicago.
Is that Jonah Rank?
It is.
I worked with him at a summer program with Ami, actually.
Excellent. Okay,
Yeah.
so just a taste of the kinds of things that happen to me on a regular basis. When I get an alum from somebody, an email saying, Melissa, I'm about to embark on this new initiative. And I say, great, you should also connect with. So now I had the opportunity to do it in person. You already know him. Shidduch, check and done. Amram, let's hear from you, please.
Hi, my name is Amram or Ami. I use he and him pronouns. I graduated from the German program with Columbia and JTS in 2017. Rabbi Jonah Rank, who Shira and I worked with for years, was also an educator at the summer program I went to, and this person who had told me to apply to List College. So like there's a lot of like very full circle things happening for me right now. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I went to high school in Manhattan, and now still live in Washington Heights at the far northern tip of Manhattan. So I've lived in New York my entire life. While I was at Columbia and JTS, I studied sociology with a focus on gender and sexuality studies at Columbia and Jewish history at JTS. And I was involved in a whole bunch of things at Hillel. I was on the board of Koach, the conservative / traditionally egalitarian minyan and group at Columbia Barnard Hillel for, I think, 2.5 years. I was also on the board of J Street CU for a couple of years and was one of the co-founders of JQ at Columbia Barnard Hillel, which is the LGBTQ Jewish student group that was at Columbia. I also, off campus, was a blogger and contributor for New Voices magazine, which is an independent online magazine created by and for Jewish college students that started back in the 1980s and is still exists today. And at JTS specifically, I was also a resident advisor. I worked on the admissions team for years, an admissions intern. And my senior year, I was one of the seniors selected for the fellowship in Jewish social entrepreneurship, which pairs seniors in List College with nonprofits in New York City to do a year's unpaid internship where JTS helps support those interns with a stipend. And my internship placement was at Keshet, which is an LGBTQ justice organization here in North America that does LGBTQ diversity, equity, inclusion work in the Jewish community. And I interned on the youth team, which is where I still work. After I graduated, I started full-time at Keshet, at first as the youth programs associate, and now I'm the associate director of youth programs, where I work on programs for LGBTQ Jewish middle school students, high school students, and college students, both online and in person all over the US and Canada. I think I said everything.
That was awesome. And you also had, when you started at Keshet also, there was another List alum who was there. And I remember that was also integral to your moment. So thank you. Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I grew up on Long Island. I now am on the Upper West Side, just like a 1.5 miles away from Columbia. I majored in Jewish ethics at JTS, and I was neuroscience and behavior on the pre-med track at Columbia. My extracurriculars included kind of what everyone mentioned before, Greek life, involved in List College at List College Student Council. I co-interned / taught the freshman year class called List 101, involved in Columbia Barnard Hillel. I also held an internship every semester of college at different medical research institutions across Manhattan. One of which I was able to do for the Fellowship for Jewish Social Entrepreneurship, similar to what Amron just talked about. Post-grad, I graduated in 2020. Melissa put me in contact with a bunch of people, and one of which alluded to my job. I was working at the Neuroscience Institute at NYU Langone Health doing neuroscience research. And I recently, in like May, transitioned, and now I'm doing clinical vaccine trials for Pfizer. And yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Thank you. Yona, let's hear from you.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. My name is Yona Kornsgold, and I'm from East Windsor, New Jersey. I currently live on the Upper West Side. I graduated from JTS in 2019, and then I headed straight to law school, staying at Columbia. I just graduated this past May and started at a law firm, Davis Polk, 2 weeks ago as a litigation associate. And in 2024, I'll be moving to LA for a year to clerk for a judge in the federal district court. While at JTS and GS, I participated in a number of activities. One was student council at GS. I was the vice president of policy. I was also on the student governing board, which is basically student council for student groups to allocate money to them. And I was on the Greek judicial board and involved in a fraternity. And then at JTS, I was on the student faculty committee, which helped revise academic policy at List College, and I was on that with Danu. And then I was also a mentor for students, an academic advisor mentor, basically, to help them plot their schedule and figure everything out. And I also married somebody who went to the double degree program, the Barnard JTS program. And now we're living on the Upper West Side, and I look forward to answering all your questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Shira Resnick.
Hi guys, my name is Shira Resnick. I'm from just outside of Philadelphia, but currently live in New York City. I was in Columbia and JTS, and I think I'm the youngest one here. I graduated in the spring of 2021, so COVID class. At JTS, I majored in Talmud, and then at Columbia, I majored in economics. Then I also spent some time at Columbia's sister school, Reed Hall in Paris, when I studied abroad for a summer. When I was at Columbia and JTS, I was involved with the admissions team. I was also an RA, like a lot of people on this call. I was a tour guide. I was involved in Greek life. I was involved in various community service activities, but one of the biggest things I was involved with was the Tamid Group, which is a consulting pro bono company that works with Israeli startups trying to break into the US market. And I ended up myself going into consulting. I now work at Accenture as a consulting analyst.
Excellent, thank you. So just from the introductions of these alumni, you can see that, I used to say things like List College alumni do everything from anthropology to zoology and everything in between. And you could see that just in the representation of our alumni here today. So thank you all for sharing a little bit of your background. I'm going to ask you a couple of targeted questions now, and be honest and share what you can with these future possible List College alumni and their families. Yona, I'm going to start with you, and let's not take your family connection into account. Yona comes from a very well-connected alumni family. But besides that, what made you choose List College for your undergraduate program?
So because of actually my family connection, I was more hesitant to come because I didn't want to follow in their footsteps. But actually, after I attended Prospective Students Weekend and actually visited the school, which I know there are some opportunities, and I encourage everybody to take advantage of the visiting opportunities, I decided to go there, and it overcame that hesitancy because I had such a great experience where there are a ton of reasons. I think the biggest one is just community. It's so important to have a community in college. And what's great about List College is that you have the opportunity at so many different communities. You have the List College community, which is small, which is great because it's much easier to find people and connect. But then you have a larger community at Columbia or Barnard, and you can really integrate with people who are very different than you. And then you have Hillel, right? All the Jews who don't necessarily go to List College. And so there's so many opportunities for that. And when I visited, I really saw all those worlds collide. And that was really reflective of my experience there, where I had the opportunity to have great friends at GS and Columbia and Hillel and List, and I'm still friends with them all today. And I think that helped me have a very successful college experience.
Thank you. Shira Resnick, after you spent a year looking at colleges across the country, what made you choose List College?
I did. I think I actually applied to like 13 schools. I actually knew I wanted to go to List College when I came to Accepted Students Day. I was a little late to the game. I didn't really know about prospective students events. But other than the community, something I was really interested in about List College is that you have so much opportunity here. You're attending like 2 top tier institutions, and you have the opportunity to work with all of these incredible, brilliant professors. You have the opportunity to go after and accept so many interesting internships because of your experiences specifically at both JTS and Columbia. And generally what just stood out for me that I didn't really see any other college talk about was the fact that being in this joint program, you have so much more perspective and you gain such like a different opinion once you graduate that it really makes you such an asset going forward in the workforce. And I was somebody that was very career oriented going into JTS, and I was very aware of the fact that being in this program would teach me so many hard skills, so many soft skills, but just generally offer me the ability to contribute something totally different to the table when I moved on to the workforce.
Thank you so much. Eric, when you were going through the process of figuring out where you were going to spend 4 years, what about List College stood out that spoke to you and said, this is where I need to be?
Something tells me that we're all sharing similar things here. But, you know, the catchphrase best of both worlds, I think, sticks out to me. I had grown up in Philadelphia, and I went to Camp Ramah, and I went to Schechter, and I was very involved in USY. I was the president of USY in Hagesher USY when it was a thing, still its own region. So the idea of going to a school where I could continue that sort of sense of community and be involved in conservative Jewish life was very important to me. And so that was one aspect. The other was I wanted to get a well-rounded, very good secular education as well. And I wanted to branch out beyond just the Jewish community, which is why Columbia was such a great option. You know, I would say bonus points for being in the center of New York, and I was able to experience living in New York City for 4 years, which was absolutely amazing. And so I saw how List College could provide that opportunity. The joint program itself provided the opportunity for me to get the education I wanted at Columbia and to have the Jewish community and Jewish education that I also wanted to continue at JTS. There's so many other little facets to that I'd love to talk about, but I don't want to dominate any more time. It's just, it was the right fit and the best of both worlds that I wanted.
Thank you. Danu, what was your most rewarding academic experience, your favorite professor at any institution that really, when you think back, if you could say to one of these students, you have to take this class, what would it be?
So interesting. Honestly, like I'm gonna mention a course, but I think if you had asked me the previous question, I would have also said that part of what I loved about this school was that I got to study 2 totally different things that are really, really so different. But in my experience specifically, I think I went in knowing I wanted to work in something in the public sector. I didn't know exactly what, but I studied, like I mentioned before, political science and Bible. And I think these were 2 pretty different fields, but that in their own ways kind of seek to study the impact that leaders and moments in time and the actions of these leaders have on citizens and on ways of life. And I think that really impacted what I wanted to do professionally. But I mean, I can point to one professor like Ben Sommer. Anyone who knows me knows I was like so obsessed with him. He taught biblical criticism, which is an area that I knew nothing about going in. I took like 4 classes with this man. It was like my entire major basically at JTS. And I think I got to study like this thing that is so important to so many people in a really unique way from like the best person in the world to study it from. And that was just like so amazing. And then at Columbia, I took a lot of classes that I really enjoyed, but I think I took 2 classes with one professor who was actually visiting from IDC, I believe. But he taught, you know, classes on terrorism and counterterrorism and on civil war and insurgencies. And he was, again, like a top professor in his field. And I think it helped center a lot of the things that I was interested in and being able to merge this like theory that you study, because if you go into some of these humanities, you'll see you study a lot of theory, and being able to like have practical applications to this was really kind of what I enjoyed the most. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if I answered all of your questions, but I think I did.
Beautifully, thank you. Ami, what's your favorite academic experience or professor or moment that you can share?
Can I pick one from each school? Great. So I would say that for me, I was a Jewish history major at JTS. I started taking my first semester, I took modern Jewish history, which was a class that really like put things in perspective for me that I hadn't seen before. I grew up in the Orthodox community here in New York City. I went to an Orthodox day school from pre-1A through high school, but also had spent very little time actually studying Jewish history, and the opportunity to do that was really amazing. And through that, I met the person who became my thesis advisor, Jack Wertheimer, whose specialty is both 20th century American Jewish life and also contemporary Jewish life as well, from both a historical and sociological perspective. And he is someone who both incredibly cares about the topics that he's teaching and about American Jewish history and life in general, and also really, really cares about his students and really takes time to sit with and engage with all of the things that his students are saying and writing about, including like the articles I was writing when I was writing for New Voices. He would like email me feedback on them. Sometimes things that he agreed with, most of the times things that he disagreed with. But it was like really clear that he cared about his students a lot. And that's why I wanted him to become my thesis advisor. And then at Columbia, my second year, my sophomore year, I took the social world, which is the intro to sociology class with Sean Behrman, or Peter Sean Behrman at Columbia. And he is a quantitative social scientist, but spends a lot of time really thinking about the ways in which really big pieces, like really big data can tell us stories and how to build narratives out of data. And that really changed the way that I thought about sociology. I didn't know much about it as a field when I started taking the social world. I was trying to fill a requirement, and it was his class, his intro to sociology, that really made me a sociology major and really changed the way that I think about the world today. And I'm really grateful that I got to take a class with him.
Excellent, and thank you. Sarah, as someone who's working professionally in the secular world with Pfizer vaccine trials, what can you say about your Jewish degree, your degree from JTS, and what kind of a role it plays in your life today, professionally or just spiritually, the value of the 2 degrees?
Wow, that's a tough question. I think that this isn't like major specific, but just going to JTS and like being in the joint program taught me time management more so than like anything else in my life. And definitely you can tell there's a difference between like in the workforce. I know I'm relatively new to my job. It's been a few months now, but like all of the feedback I've had is how surprised and like impressed people are with the ability to like be quick and efficient. And that is something that I completely attribute to JTS, because I was in 2 very different majors and there wasn't much like to overlap, and you're taking a lot of classes, especially being pre-med. And I was able to kind of learn how to do both simultaneously. And that definitely helped in the workforce, like learn how to be efficient with my time. Spiritually, I do think that I think about Jewish ethics a lot, and especially the professors. The reason why I liked Jewish ethics so much is because you're taking kind of philosophy through a Jewish lens and like having it be applicable. And I think those conversations that you have in classes really led to very intimate relationships with my professors. And like recently, a few weeks ago, I had a very difficult situation in my personal life. And like I reached out to my theater professor, Rabbi Nevins, who used to be the dean of the rabbinical school at JTS. He no longer is at JTS, and yet he still like took time out of his day to chat with me and like give me resources and helped me through something that I'm very appreciative of. And I also know that like he's the kind of professor that I want to come to JTS for. And yeah, not sure that really answered your question, but
No, it does. It does. Thank you. And I'm glad that you had that positive experience with Rabbi Nevins. And I hear this more often than not of alumni who circle back to their former professors for guidance in both personal and professional capacities. And like you, they're always so surprised that 8 years later and 2 years later and whatever it is, the professors remember them and help them and guide them. And it just doesn't surprise me. I don't know. I don't want to say I expect this of our faculty, but it's what I see. You know, we wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth, and JTS faculty care about their students. It's just a guarantee. So yeah, so thank you. Shira Harris, how has completing two very different degrees from two different higher ed institutions helped you in your professional world?
Yeah, so I think as I said, I sort of have like two like simultaneous careers, I guess, that I've been going on. I've been working as a teacher at a deaf school, and at the same time pursuing professional theater. And I think that a lot of people are very quick to say like, but which one is it? Or like, what do you choose? And I'm very much of like, I want to be able to do both. And I think that that was pretty similar to how I chose to attend List College, because I really wanted to attend Barnard. I wanted to go to a women's college. I wanted to have an experience of attending like a traditional liberal arts college. But I also wanted to continue like academically studying Judaism. And I had grown up attending Jewish day school my whole life. So I felt like I wasn't ready to be done with that. And I found List College as like an opportunity to continue doing both. And then after I graduated, I was working at JTS, which was very fun. I highly recommend working at the Rabbinical Assembly. And then I decided to go back to Columbia for my master's, and that was sort of like, on the one hand, it was like picking sort of like a full-time job. On the other hand, it was definitely like, it's, you know, across the street from JTS. It's all every institution there is very nearby, and I felt like being able to be there and being so close to JTS, to Columbia, to Barnard was definitely something that like encouraged me to continue grad school, specifically at Columbia. And then once I finished grad school and got a job, I just sort of continued being able to like be involved in all of these different things. And I think that that was a skill that I wanted to like develop when I started at JTS, was to not have to just pick like Judaism or a professional career in something else, or like to pick you know, one of like several things that I enjoyed. And I think that JTS really helped me with that.
Excellent, thank you. Shira Resnick, do you think having earned 2 undergraduate degrees separates you from others when you're in the job search market, or when you're sitting at the table talking to your colleagues who say, what, you have what, how many degrees in 4 years?
Yeah, hands down. I kind of alluded to this when I was answering the question earlier, but I'm in consulting, finance. A lot of those businessy industries recruit very, very early on, and they really recruit from amazing schools. And to be a successful candidate, you have to have something that sets you apart. And for me, that was going to JTS. And like, that was so instrumental in my interview process. I got so many questions about it. Everybody was always so impressed that I was so passionate about like a part of my identity, that I was studying it and I was getting a bachelor's in it. And of course, going to JTS gives you all these other hard skills, time management, Sarah mentioned, being efficient, that it was really a game changer for me when I went through the recruitment process. And just now that I'm in my career, I really do think it gives you like a different perspective and it allows you to bring so much more to the table. I majored in economics and Talmud, and while those don't necessarily 100% feed into consulting, the thought processes I learned in both degrees have really shaped how I think about my comments and what I bring to the table in my job every single day. So yeah, I would definitely say it's been instrumental for me in my career, at least in the interview process in general.
Excellent, thank you. And Danu, you're in a really interesting professional field right now. How do you think your experience in a dual degree program, separates you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for starters, what Sarah says like really resonates of, I think we had like a lot to do and we chose to put a lot on ourselves too. And I think it just sets me apart of like the amount of work I can handle and how efficiently and I can get it done. Like, it's like pretty clear. And I think it's really amazing, like how much we had to do. And like, we just did it as if it was normal. But not everyone has that experience in college. And I think that was really cool. And I don't know, I remember hearing things like this when I was a prospective student and being very, very like scared that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And don't worry, like if you're listening to this and you're like, how will I ever be able to manage? Like you do it, like you figure it out and there's people there to support you to do it. But also doing it like really helps in the future. So I think that's one thing. I think like right now, I guess specific to my current job, like I write a lot. Everything that the chair of my committee does or says like goes through me. And I think that I spent a lot of time writing in school and I like got critiqued a lot by my professors and I had to workshop things a lot and figure out how to make ideas clear and how to, take complicated things and make them accessible to people. And that's what I do now. So it was very, very helpful. And both at Columbia and at JTS, I was doing that all the time. And it was like, okay, you get this like 30-page thing. What do I need to know from there that's important? It's the same thing what I'm doing now. I take a bill, I take a summary of a bill and it's like, okay, what are we going to talk about this bill, this piece of legislation? So it's this like, I do a lot of things that are so transferable. And I think because like especially at JTS, you get the opportunity to be in spaces with people who are really important in those spaces. Like Yona mentioned that we were both in the student faculty committee. It was made up of like the dean of the school and who now is the chancellor of the school, and really important moments like that. I had a meeting with like President Bollinger at the time, and like it was only because like we were in this unique position to be in those spaces. And I think now when I sit down with the chair of our committee, the member of Congress, like I feel confident that I know what I'm talking about and that I know what like the situation I'm in. And I think it's only because during school I had moments like I was the vice president of policy on List College Student Council and I was meeting with administrators all the time. To me, that was normal and it was fine, but it was people who were like really important in what they were doing. And I think it made me more confident as like a person in the workforce. So yeah, that's what I would say. That's different from everyone else.
You are an important woman in the workforce, so thank you. Eric, thinking about the time you spent at JTS, List College, Columbia, and just the Morningside Heights community, how did you evolve in those 4 years? And I don't mean, it can be religiously, it can be professionally, it can be personally. Can you identify an aha moment where you say to yourself, that's where I became who I am today and not necessarily who I enrolled as a high school grad? Any sort of moments like that?
There was an aha moment, and it's tied to what I mentioned before as my experience in the extracurriculars and the trajectory I ended up taking following my graduation. Before college, I should mention, I went on the Natif program. I was over in Israel, and I did I did a full year, half the year studying at Hebrew University, half the year volunteering on Kibbutz Ein Tzurim in the south of Israel, near Gaza. And Israel has always been very important to me. My mother's Israeli, my wife is Israeli now, but when I got to college, I was a little burnt out. 4 years plus Kadima, in USY and doing leadership stuff, and then going to Israel, and it was a lot. And so when I got to college, I kind of wanted to keep my head down. I didn't really want to get involved in extracurricular. I kind of want to just focus on my studies and just not be that person that I was in high school to some degree. I kind of wanted to just give myself a breather. And then my spring semester of my freshman year, I was walking through Columbia's, through campus near the sundial, which is the center of campus. And as I was walking through, I heard this chanting and this loud, back and forth going on. And next thing I know, I realized that there's an anti-Israel protest going on in the middle of Columbia's campus. And I looked at sort of what was going on, and I didn't really see that much of a presence of the pro-Israel side or those defending Israel. And I was not only disheartened, I was angry. I was really upset about it. And you talk about an aha moment. That was the aha moment where I was like, somebody's got to stand up and do something. And that ended up being me for the next 4 years, trying to bring many people together. I think by senior year, we had a coalition of, so many different supporters, not just from JTS, but, the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community. I had connections with the Black Student Union at Columbia. I had connections with the Christian groups and the Mormons. That year, we took the largest delegation ever from Columbia University to APAC Policy Conference. So that was my aha moment. And that then translated into my pursuing that dream of mine to defend Israel, not only in a suit and tie, but in uniform. And that led me to make Aliyah to Israel, to volunteer for service as a lone soldier. And that was my experience at Columbia JTS. And it was the encouragement, support of JTS. The last thing I'll say is, throughout my 4 years, there was no shortage of support from JTS for what we wanted to do on campus. No shortage of support and advice given from JTS professors, including then Chancellor Arnold Eisen. I can't tell you how many conversations I was privileged to have with the Chancellor about our activism on campus, and how we, the nuances that we could, tap into in order to convey our message of, support for Israel. Anyway, that's what I'll share.
Thank you, Eric. Yona, how did you evolve personally, religiously, socially in your time at JTS?
I think one key thing for me was just becoming more confident. And part of what other people are talking about is all these opportunities you're given throughout school and college to be put in a position where you're talking in front of people, as Donnie mentioned, that you wouldn't ordinarily speak in front of, whether it's deans or administrators, you look at Columbia's campus, all sorts of groups. There are List College students who are the leaders of those groups, and diverse groups, like from all areas. And that's a lot of leadership, that responsibility you're given. And I think for me, having those responsibilities in student council and at JTS really gave me an opportunity to be more confident. And I think that is one way that I developed. Academically, you're being challenged every day. And that's a great thing because your work ethic improves, you get better at whatever you're aiming to get better at. And I think those are really important to challenge yourselves. And I think religiously, my father is a rabbi. So I grew up in a very traditional home, going to Jewish day school and camp and keeping Shabbat. And so I think for me, the opportunity to kind of do a little more exploring and like the backbone of why I'm doing all of these things was important to me, especially from a different perspective. I grew up going to same school as Ami, an Orthodox day school. And so an opportunity to go to an institution, a pluralistic institution that is focusing on everybody's kind of own path. And you could criticize the Bible and the Talmud and everything, not in a way to defeat it, but in a way to learn and to challenge. And I think that is so important on one's religious journey to have that opportunity. And I think that is something I grew with, and now I'm so much more educated today when I'm having conversations with people about Jewish things, or even just like thinking about my own religious identity, was something that JTS gave me the opportunity that you really aren't going to get anywhere else, because you have faculty that are experts in this, who have thought about these issues for a long time, and they're working on helping you learn and get an idea of the both sides of everything in different perspectives, and that's just a really important thing.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for answering these broad questions that our admissions office has arranged based on some of the inquiries of the students who registered with these questions in advance. And I'm going to just now pivot to some of the questions that are popping up. But I do want to let everybody know that before we close, I am going to ask each of our alumni to give a piece of advice for the college application process with respect to their experience and JTS. But before we go to that, Ami, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask a few people, but I'll start with you, Ami, because I haven't heard from you in a couple of questions now. Oh, the question just jumped. Okay, so let's see. Do you think that your time at List College helped you get closer to your values? I know you spoke about being raised in an Orthodox day school, and then you came to JTS, and now you work in an LGBTQ workplace, which is diverse and pluralistic by definition. Do you think that your time at JTS helped you better understand your values and come closer to them Jewishly and religiously, or did something else happen?
The short answer is yes, 100%. The longer answer is, like Yona said, Yona and I went to the same high school. I actually met Yona's brother the first day of high school, and we've been friends ever since. Yona's brother, the first day of high school, we've been friends ever since. And I've known Yona since high school as well. I grew up in an Orthodox community, and I learned things from a very specific Orthodox perspective, a perspective that like is still really important to me and to my family. And part of why I wanted to come to JTS is that I always felt at home in religiously pluralistic settings. At the summer program that Shira and I at the very beginning talked about when I was a participant that Shira and I worked at together, which is a pluralistic program for Jewish high school students from all over the world. And although JTS is the flagship of the conservative movement for the rabbinical and cantorial programs, one of the things that's really special about LIST is that it's a pluralistic program and it's an academic program at its core. And so I really was drawn to being in a place where I could learn about Jewish history and Jewish life from an academic standpoint. And I could take the things that I learned a lot about and things that I had not learned a lot about. I did not learn a lot of Jewish history growing up. I learned a good amount of Talmud, but actually learned them from an academic perspective. And that really actually helped me grow in my appreciation for that, like being able to learn Tanakh, learn the Bible from an academic perspective, like helped me grow my appreciation for that. And it really helped prepare me to really think about the ways in which, like, I, as a Jewish person who came of age in the first, couple decades of the 21st century, and I'm still coming of age in the first couple decades of the 21st century, think about myself as a Jewish person and think about myself as an American, and think about the ways in which, like, my identities as a Jewish person, as a queer person, all intersect with each other, and being able to think about and study the history of of Jews in the Soviet Union, my family's from the Soviet Union, and studying American Jewry since 1945 and learning about all of those different things together meant that I was able to actually really understand who I was as a person in a way that I was not able to do before that. And that was really, really special about JTS, and to do that with other Jewish students who came from every possible Jewish walk of life, who are also invested in thinking about these things in critical and important ways, was really important to me.
Awesome, thank you. All right, by a quick show of hands, I think we've done a lot of talk about academic and classes and internships, but a quick show of hands, did you guys have fun? Raise your hand if you had fun when you were at, okay, right, we had fun. Raise your hand if you went to parties. Raise your hand if you went to sports games. Okay, oh, 2 hands from Eric. Okay, raise your hand if you experienced New York City as its own complimentary campus to your academic experience. Okay, great. So Sarah, What's the most fun you had? A really
Um,
fun time.
okay, yeah. So most of my fun times were with like my two best friends that are actually on this panel. And one time in particular, Danu and I were at a library and we didn't want to be in the library anymore. So we went to Central Park because we thought we would somehow get work done there. No work was done, but we ended up seeing, well, we knew him as like Dan Humphrey from Gossip Girl. You guys might know him as Joe Goldberg from You. But we met him and then we played soccer with him. And it was like, we were, I don't know, Don is still like, I still fangirl over that experience. It was so fun. So yeah, that was definitely like top tier New York City fun during college.
Awesome. Awesome. Eric, what was your most fun?
Oh, that's a tough one. The top of my mind is one of the winters. I just can't remember, but one of the winters it just came down snow, just so much snow on campus, and then we heard obviously through the grapevine that there was a snowball fight happening on campus, and so we all went over. I think I want to say, yeah, the JTS dorms pretty much emptied, and we all went over to campus, and we're just having fun with the snow and dropping down on the steps, which were covered, and people were throwing snowballs left and right. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
That I'll definitely remember. The winters, although they were extremely cold, and even more so now for me, I was just in Philadelphia and I'm a California guy now, so like I've acclimated. It's all too cold for me. But back then, I had a lot of fun in the winters up in New York.
Awesome. Shira Resnick, what was your really fun experience?
Yeah, Melissa, I think you did a really good job of saying it. We on this call have been talking about how JTS is so different from other schools, but it's of course the same. We all go to parties, we all do all of these incredible things. We all utilize New York. One of the most amazing parts of the school is that you're in New York City, you can do whatever you want in like the drop of a hat. So me and my friends freshman year, we made it a goal of ours every weekend to do something totally different. And that was probably the coolest experience we had. We went to sample sales, fashion shows, comedy clubs, Broadway shows, literally anything you can think of. We did freshman year, and it was just probably like the coolest experience because I feel like I can now say that even freshman year of college, I had like a full New York experience. I tried all of these different things. So it's hard for me to pick just one, but think of any New York thing and I'm sure we've done it. Like we went kayaking in Central Park, everything.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. One more formal question. I think this one might be for you, Yona. How did the joint program prepare you specifically for law school and your professional career afterwards, which seems to be on track? You're at a firm, the bar, you got a clerkship. Any credit to the joint program?
Yes, most of the credit. I'll take a little, but I'll give the joint program most of it. I'll just try not to be redundant here with the applications. People spoke about, Shira did a good job, Danu, everybody speaking about how the joint program helps you with your applications. And that is so true for law school. You have to write a personal statement for law school. Done. It's basically written. You're going to probably incorporate JTS. You did 2 degrees. Nobody else did that. You're going to maybe have some interviews. Done. You have something to talk about. There's certainly going to be something to ask about it. So that is going to just help you. No doubt. And then in terms of like actually in law school, I mean, I've spoken about it earlier on this panel. Other people have too. Work ethic is just so important to law school and then being a lawyer. And this is the place that if you don't have it already, that's fine. You will develop it at JTS because you are balancing 2 degrees and different types of classes, Columbia, JTS on totally different subjects, and your extracurricular activities because they're on, JTS and Columbia, and your social life, and you really are going to develop an amazing work ethic. And I think that is the key thing for preparing for law school. But also, I was a Talmud major, and being able to parse text is something you do in law. Being able to, even though it's Hebrew or Aramaic or even an English translation, being able to understand what these people were thinking hundreds and hundreds of years ago is something you're doing in law school. And so that prepared me for that. And I think for the professional career, it's still something I get asked about in interviews. And if I'm not asked about it in interviews, I have the opportunity to bring it up myself. I'll reference it, and it's just impressive. Most people probably haven't heard of the joint program, but once you talk about it, they're like, wow, that's unbelievable. And so I think that those are the key things for law school, but also for anything you're going to do. in the joint program afterwards, even if you don't know, and you don't have to know. You're just going through this process right now. You don't have to think about it right now, but it will prepare you no matter what.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time. You know, our alumni, they have personal lives. They're certainly continuing with all of their work and social life that they did in college, outside of college, and, you know, families. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Ami, I know you're like a repeater over here because we like having you. So I hope all of you will come back for future panels like this and share your knowledge and your experience with, like I said earlier, who could be future alumni. And I'm just going to ask each of you to answer this one last question. The piece of advice you have, you know, whether it's to your younger self who could be potentially sitting out there on this call right now, or to, you know, your friends, younger siblings who could be applying. What's your piece of advice to the college application process with respect to List College and anything else you can offer these students and their families? So let's do Shira Harris. You want to go first?
Sure. Sorry, I disappeared. My computer just crashed. And now I'm on someone else's computer. So a piece of advice that I would have is to, well, first of all, if you do attend List College, which you should, is to like really take advantage of being in New York. I think one of the unique things about List College is that you're not only getting everything that that List College and Columbia and Barnard provide, but you also have all of New York. And I think that it's very easy to just stay on campus because everything that you possibly need is on campus. But I encourage everyone to like go, you know, find a group of people and go and do something fun, see a show, go downtown, go to Brooklyn, just like see the rest of the city, because you really have an opportunity to see an amazing city and to experience everything that's happening. And Morningside Heights is a great place to be, and staying on campus is also fun, but I would really encourage people to like get out and see what's going on. There's a lot of fun things in the city.
Thank you, Shira. Ami, what's your value add? What's your 2 cents?
Yeah, I did not know what sociology was when I started Columbia. And then I majored in it and took most of my classes in it, including the very few electives I had. And part of that is that I thought I was going to study like political science or economics and Talmud, and that's not what ended up happening. And that's totally fine. And it's okay for those things to change over time. And it's probably good if those things change over time. Sometimes they don't, and that's also great. But it's okay to go in thinking you're going to do one thing and then totally end up pulling a 180 and doing some other things instead. And that's part of why I really loved having a liberal arts education, both at Columbia and at JTS, was really the opportunity to take classes in departments and topics I'd never heard of before, that led to really changing the way I think about the world. And to really like go in and really enjoy having that opportunity.
Thank you. Sarah, what do you leave? What's your indelible mark on these future college students?
Something that was told to me and I didn't follow it, and I wish I did, that like college is not all about the academics. If I had to go and redo college, the only thing I would do less is like less time in a library, just because like if you're choosing this program, it's so self-selective that like, you know, you're going to do well. And it's just really important to take advantage of the people in the community that you're with, and just like have a good time. The people consider college like the best 4 years, not because of the schooling all the time, also because of like being with your friends. And yeah, that's my advice.
Excellent advice. Thank you. Eric, what are your final words to these future college students?
Look for themes of interest. When I was looking at doing extracurriculars, and I was making new friends, and I was taking subjects and courses, I found it helpful that if there was something that I was interested in, themes of interest, for me, it was the Middle East and studying language in Israel, doing all that sort of stuff. So I did my degree in Middle Eastern Studies, and I studied Hebrew at JTS. And I was part of, like I said, the pro-Israel stuff, themes of interest. And I would pull that thread while I was at Columbia and JTS to sort of shape my experience through that lens. I wouldn't do just that, of course. Explore all themes of interest, maybe whether that's a theme of interest in literature or in culture or in music and the arts or whatever it might be. But if something interests you, pull on that thread and pursue it. Pursue it till, and you'll find very unique and interesting things that happen around you while you're in school.
That's great advice. Thank you. Danu.
Hi. Honestly, it's kind of like a hard question for me because I don't really know what to say, but I think one thing is that like both schools in New York City have so much to offer. Like I regret, for example, not getting closer to some of the professors that I had and like taking advantage of some of the resources that Columbia has to offer. And I know that seems like super intimidating, which I think is part of the reason that like I missed out on some things that I wish I hadn't missed out on. But I think just keep like definitely see what you're interested in, keep it going, like Eric said, but also like just see what's out there. Like there is hundreds and hundreds of clubs and people and things to see and do. And yeah, just like be a sponge.
Yeah. I'm going to elaborate on that before I ask our last two panel to speak. And I'm just going to say that if you find yourself enrolling in JTS in the fall of 23 or deferring to the fall of 24, I'm one of those resources. For 5.5 years, I was the director of career development, and my focus were List College students. And to this day, the List College students who remember that I am there and come to me with their resumes and their networking questions, first of all, I think it's really fun, but it really does play itself out in a positive way. So I would definitely encourage you all to, like Danu said, take advantage of the resources that are at your fingertips. And in this case, the faculty, myself, Student Life, and our alumni, we're all there to make your experience complete, not just for the 4 years, but afterwards. So thank you for making that point, Danu. Shira Resnick.
I think I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction. I think I mentioned to you all that I did not know where I wanted to go to school. I applied to so many different schools, and I ended up choosing JTS because I came on Accepted Students Day, and I heard students talk and I heard professors talk, and it was so evident to me that there was such a strong community. All the students loved what they were doing. They all were friendly with one another, and all the professors very, very clearly cared about you. And for me, that gut feeling of like, this is a place where I think I would do really well. This is a place where I could see myself having a really great community was why I ended up choosing JTS. And that obviously was realized in my time at JTS, like from the small things to when people would bake banana bread and just post in the group chat, does anybody want banana bread, to things where like I struggled in a high calculus class and people at JTS helped me. So overall, I would say something that I really looked for when I was applying to college and ended up being great for me was a community fit. And at the end of the day, you can do your research and you can talk to as many people as you can, but I think you should really trust your gut feelings about what kind of a community you want and the kind of community you feel when you speak to students, when you go to different events. And for me, that was definitely JTS.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Yona, I believe everyone answered the question, right? Everyone gave their 2 cents. Yona, wrap it up for these prospective students. What's your final words to these folks?
So if you're certain you want to go to JTS, apply early. I did it. It was awesome to be done and to know and to start meeting people. But if you're not so sure, apply. It really, obviously, I mean, we all did the college applications. I know you're doing them now. It's a lot, but it's worth it. Just apply. You get in, you can have more time to speak to people if you're not so certain. And I really think it's just, I almost didn't apply. I really, like, I know I applied early, but like, I was really going to write it off. And I think that's just a mistake. Unless you're certain that you, for some reason, you're not going to be able to do it or you don't want to do it, that's fine. But if there's some part of you that's saying you want to go to JTS, just apply. You can talk to more people. You can talk to us. there's so many alumni, current students, people at GTS if you need to be convinced.
That's great advice. Thank you. Again, thank you on behalf of everyone at JTS. Thank you to our alumni. This is my privilege. I will turn it over now to Madison in our JTS admissions office, and alumni, thank you. Go enjoy your post panel lives right now, and Shana Tova, Gama Khatima Tova to each of you. Thank you, Madison.
Yes. Melissa, I think that you said it best. Thank you everyone who tuned in with us tonight. I hope that you found the insights from our incredibly successful alum helpful in your college search process. Feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to be connected to Melissa in any way, shape, or form. And I wish you all a great evening and look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye, everyone.